Welcome back to Sports Check. And as I mentioned way earlier when we were starting the show, that segment, of course, will be featuring the Kenya International Sports Film Festival. For those who were able to tune in last week, we had Chris come out talking about, of course, the preparations ahead of the festival, which was happening starting Thursday last week. And now, finally, it's over. And we have to take stock, obviously. And to do that, in studio with us is the chair and founder of the Kenya International Sports Film Festival, Aasif Karim. Once again, a familiar face, really, to most. Remember last year at the same time, really, as we were taking stock of the festival, and always great to have your company for the show. So just an overview of how the festival was this year. It was a virtual festival, just like last year, and this time I saw it was actually bigger and better, especially when it comes to the submissions, the film submissions. So can you say that there is an increase in the popularity as well as the interest amongst people, the viewers, sports fans, be it filmmakers and all that? Can you say it's a sign that it is actually gaining a lot of popularity moving forward?
Well, first of all, it's good to see you after almost a year here. I was here last year. In fact, I must thank KBC, because my first interview post the festival is KBC television. So thank you for that opportunity to give you an update. Yes, the festival went extremely well. The 4-day event finished yesterday. We had about 1,400 movies that were submitted, and over the 4 days we showed about 40 plus documentaries and movies, the top ones that were selected from around the world by a very able jury. We had an international jury that looked at the final, headed by John C.B. Okumu, the renowned personality that we have in the media and in the industry. And we had jury. The jury team comprised of 2 from India, 1 from the Islamic Republic of Iran, and the United States. So they came up with some fantastic results on that. And over the 4 days, like we show all the movies, we also have various panel discussions affecting sports in Kenya and globally. So it was very well received, and I must say that the Kenyans are now embracing this festival much, much more. Because when we started in 2018, we had a couple of submissions. This year we had almost 20 submissions, and a Kenyan won also an award, one of the movies, and the DFS, the Department of Film Service, and the Kenya Film School did a great job on the production of this 4-day festival.
Okay. Now, taking to mind, of course, your partners for the sports festival, and last year especially, I do remember that after you briefed us at the event, and you said that there were all these obligations, or rather promises made to, let's say, be it improve or rather equip people better so that they can get into sports, making sports films, really, which is still a new phenomenon, especially in this side of the world, really. But gauging by this year, maybe what should we expect before the next event? Because as early as last year, Chris said, Chris was here, obviously, as I did mention, and he talked about all the plans, all the arrangements that have been made amongst your partners. And he did say that out of it last year, we have a couple of people, of course, doing well. As you mentioned, we even had, a Kenyan film winning. So maybe should we expect a similar incentive for our filmmakers and sports fans, moving forward before the next edition?
Definitely. I call it a work in progress. As I said, we started in 2018. It's a new phenomena. It is now coming to age and life. We gave ourselves 5 years to this festival for it then to become a global event where everybody's going to talk about sports and film. It's a new phenomenon. Kenyans are now trying to understand, embrace what is the whole concept about. And as I said, the students that were involved in the production from the Kenya Film School, they have already got brilliant ideas. They are on the run from today. They can see that they were discussing on how many potential stories that Kenyans have over the last 50 years, whether it's the sports person, or whether it's the national team, or whether you're talking about clubs or estates, and there's so many stories. So I am very confident that the Kenyan creative industry is going to build up a lot of movies and documentaries down the road. And again, if you remember, that's one of the president's agenda in the 4 pillars of creating employment. So what better than creative industry to go into this? A lot of people say it's a low-hanging fruit. I used to show that, but since yesterday, I'm saying it's not a low-hanging fruit. It's the fruit on your table. You're ready to eat.
Exactly.
It's how hungry we are, and how hungry the creative industry is, because sports and creative industry, that's a ready employment situation.
Okay. Now, Aasif, maybe what goes into the thought process of picking the topics? As you mentioned, you have different topics that you do have conversations around. This year there were really new ones, really, like how esports is changing the next generation story in Africa, and a couple of them even introducing new sports, even the bowling, potential of animation production in sports, part of what you're advocating for in sports, in the sports festival, even sport for the hearing impaired. So maybe what goes behind the selection of what you're going to be discussing really in each edition? Well,
again, as I said, we have a team that goes through this organization and discussion on what subjects would be good. So we look at current trends that's happening, like esports now is becoming a very big thing. I think it's here to remain. It's very good for the youths right now. They are concentrating on that. They are involved internationally on that. So, and it's a huge money spinner also. So we thought it would be good to educate, because one of the purpose of this festival is to educate. And so there are a lot of people who do not understand what esports is all about. So it's something that will be information. The other area that we also concentrate every year is to look at 2 or 3 sports that are what regarded as minority sports. So bowling is a very minority sport, and as a child I always thought that it is for the old people only. You would see the white colonials playing, there was nobody else playing when we were children, but it's not that at all. So again, it was an education for people to understand, and now we have a young Kenyan who is one of the top African bowling player. So there's a lot of potential in that. So again, it's an education, awareness, and then of course we discuss regular stuff like mental health is a huge issue right now, especially with COVID and what has happened to the sports stars who are deprived of playing and how it affected their sports. I mean, for example, Naomi Osaka is what everybody talks about, it, what mental challenges she went through. And then you realize that it's not only at the top level, it's at every level. So that's how this the discussion came about on what are the different subjects that the public would like to hear, would like to engage. And again, governance is always an annual topic, sports governance, because we have a serious problem.
So yeah, actually on that, maybe just to go, you got a chance to listen into the just concluded interview that we were having about women's football and the need for us to streamline governance. But just your take on that, because Sean had her say, just your take on that, because as you mentioned, even last year you still had this as a topic in last year's International Sports Film Festival. So maybe what are the positives that you've seen since then, or the negatives, or what we need to do to maintain the being consistent in this?
This is a subject I'm very passionate about. I even mentioned it. You asked me to look at the camera at the end and give a 1-minute talk, and I talked a little bit about it. I think we are trying, but we are going the wrong direction. What I mean by going the wrong direction, we are doing a piecemeal solution. It's like having a sickness here, you try and patch it here, then it goes there, you try and patch it here. It just is a patchwork. I think, and I strongly believe that first of all, we need to recognize sports as a multi-billion-dollar industry, especially in the last 20-25 years. When we were playing in the 80s, 90s, and towards the end of my career, there was some little money that we earned. In those days, you played for the love of the sport. Now it's a different ballgame. It's a profession. It's where people have earned money.
Yeah, it's a career.
And you have very limited time as a professional sportsman, and then you've got a long life to live. So at that professional years, how do you maximize what the situation is? So here is my suggestion. I think, first of all, we need to recognize that we need to have a standalone Ministry of Sports, so that you understand the value and the importance not only at the top level, but it filters all the way to the grassroots, that now we have a Ministry of Sports, so it's important. We then, in my view, need to get an executive order from the President that he disbands the entire sports in this country. Football is a joke. It's becoming joke by the day, among many other sports. So instead of pretending that we will do a patchwork and we will be fine, I think we are fooling ourselves. We have fooled ourselves enough for so many years. Look at what happened to cricket. A team that reached the semi-finals of the World Cup just a few years ago has the government to come in. We are now playing a Division 4. So many sports are suffering right now. And I'm sure, like what the young lady was talking to you about, and you could feel the pain that what they are going through. Yeah. So it's not something, a particular sports, it's across the board. So unless we go back to ground zero, and of course there is an argument that we may be suspended. Well, what difference does it make? We are on ground zero anyway, performance-wise. We cannot even, I think football would even struggle to win anything in East Africa.
But what about, because at the moment you have a couple of athletes, young athletes on the rise, maybe even after COVID, as you mentioned about their health, mental health issues really. Don't you think that will also be a huge blow for them? Because be it for 2 years, be it a ban for 2 years, and whatever the period, still you have a couple of good athletes, good footballers, good across the board. Once again, as you said, the problem lies across the board. Then again, there are athletes across the board who are actually having, they're in the form of their lives. Isn't that going to maybe, hurt them?
It's a fair point, but you remember, we cannot have everything. We cannot have our cake and eat it. We want to try and correct situations. So the choice is, do we go the patchwork that we are doing? What are the results we are getting? Are we achieving anything? That's for the public to decide. Or do we take a hard measure and say, no, let's go back to ground zero. Let's say it's some professionals coming in from various sectors of the field to try and create a very clear governance on the structures and treat it as a business. Now, when you mention athletes are suffering, athletes are representing themselves. They are representing Kenya, but when our marathons go to the world, they go as individuals. So they do not need the association for them to be endorsed, number one. Number two, Kenya is a powerhouse in sports in general. So obviously with the president's network, the president's respect globally, he could present a case, and if we have to be suspended for a short term to achieve a longer period success, then I think we need to sacrifice that. Because if we are going to go through what we are going through, and there is so much of hurt and there is so much of discontent by all the associations, then how is it helping? So we need to strike, what you are saying is, can we strike a balance? Yes, exactly. We could have, but I think we are beyond that now. Because we are trying to strike a balance, but we are not moving forward. I mean, you've got 800 million shillings that was given for the Kasarani and the Nyayo Stadium. That's not loose change.
Exactly.
That's a lot of money, of taxpayers' money. And now you get the international body coming and telling you that these stadiums,
they don't meet the required standards.
And are we still talking about balancing? Are we still trying to talk about striking a balance? This is the tip of the ice. There are many other areas, many other sports. If you manage to get every sports association come and talk to you, I'm sure it's going to be a replica of what the young lady told you about.
It has actually been that during the, really, even since we started doing this, really, you've had, whenever you have federation, it's always the same old story, really. But anyway, let's have that conversation another day. Okay. Back to, for the interest of time, sure. Back to our main topic today. Of course, we're talking about the Sports Film Festival. There was an interesting topic for me, what I consider an interesting topic. Are sports biopics an inspiration to society? So maybe we can talk about that, and how much of it we need to do ourselves as Kenyans, because nowadays most sports biopics really are not centered around Kenya, really, are they? We have a lot of foreign films, foreign biopics out there, but then again, what do we need to do to ensure that this can actually be actualized. We need them to be an inspiration to society. So maybe what can we do to achieve that?
Indeed, that's a very good topic you have talked about. This is a game changer. This subject is a game changer. If you remember 30 years ago, biopic were basically started by Hollywood. And in the last 10-12 years, Bollywood has come in a big way. And we have all seen a good sports biopic. And when you come out of the theater, you get so charged up, you get so inspired, because what you are seeing of a sports person behind the scene. You see, normally when we see a sportsman perform, we just see the event.
Exactly.
But we do not see the things behind of what the preparation they go through, or the ups and the downs that they go through. So those are the type of stories that can inspire the generation. It can not only inspire youths, it would even inspire the seniors. I mean, for example, if I talk about Rose Tatamuya, I mean, when I hear her story of how she started running without shoes, and then you see her becoming a legend in our country. I mean, isn't that a story for a young girl? If she saw a story of how she started, what are the ups and downs she went through, and how she succeeded, that to me is an inspiring story. Now, that's number one. Number two, I think it is important to document those things either in book form or on the creative industry through movies and documentaries, because A, you're recognizing and honoring the sports person. B, you're leaving a heritage. You're leaving a legacy for the future generation to know where we have come from. And more importantly, it's a commercial issue because it's a huge money spinner. If you look at all the biopics that have been done over the last 10 years, I mean, there is a movie which we heard yesterday in this discussion called, it's an Indian movie called Dangal. Dangal. It's on wrestling. It's a true story. It's an Indian story which made more money in China than even it make in India. I mean, India was $1 billion turnover, but China was even bigger. So biopics is not a particular country story. It's a global story. Whenever you do a biopic, it gives a lot of messages, it gives a lot of inspiration, and gives a lot of things to think about for the globe. Now the globe is a village. So no matter whether you talk a Kenyan story, or whether you talk about an Ethiopian story, or you talk about an Indian sportsman, it's always going to be a global story. So I think it is something, we have no story on any Kenyan, a biopic done on any Kenyan. I mean, biopic is somebody where you are acting or doing a story of a person who has gone through that, just for the interest of the viewers. I don't know of any in Kenya. Do we have any that you know of?
I don't know.
Yeah, so it's something that will be a good game changer for the creative industry and for the sports.
Okay. Now, obviously, taking from, what happened this year, we shall be, or rather the next course of action really is to ask, out of everything that you had, the conversations that were discussed, and from all these topics, I know there are a couple that need to be talked about constantly. So I'm sure even sports governance, with the way we are at the moment, I'm sure it's going to feature in next year's event, next year's sports film festival. But then again, your takeaway from this year's edition and what we should expect going into the next edition next year, and will it be still virtual?
Well, as far as this year's festival is concerned, what I was really impressed with the youngsters that we keep talking about being our future. I think the slogan is to change. They are our present and future.
Yeah.
We need to give them all the opportunities, like Kenya Film School. I thought they did a wonderful production over the 4 days, supported by the Department of Film Services. So it tells you that there is potential here. We do not need to bring anybody from outside. We are able and capable of doing an international production.
Yes.
We got a lot of positive response from internationally on our production for the 4-day festival. What also came out very strong is that the creative industry in Kenya are very keen to do more production in sports. We're looking forward to the 5th year, where your question was, will it be virtual? We're looking at making it a hybrid, so that we, because online you get a huge coverage globally, and of course the personal being together is very important. So we're looking forward to a hybrid, and making it really even bigger for the 5th year.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Aasif, for the interest of time. Allow me to kindly wind this up.
Sure.
But of course, we shall be discussing that on other platforms. We shall be discussing about all the takeaways, because there was a lot being discussed this year. So we sure do hope that you won't mind updating us regularly on, the progress within which, maybe after everything that has been spoken about, the conversations that have been had, what happens next. I'm sure you won't mind talking to us about that in other platforms. But for today, thank you very much. Always great to have you in studio.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate once again KBC. And as I keep saying always, that the media, the people say that they are doing media a favor. I think it's complementing each other. Without you guys, we also cannot give our story. So I want to thank all the media houses, including KBC, for the wonderful job that you're doing and letting us share what we are doing.
Okay. Well put, really. We should, complement each other. That's actually well put. Thank you very much, Aasif, and for the viewers, thank you for, of course, tuning in. That's it for Sports Check today, but don't go too far. Next up is Tamdrini with Ben Chumba.